Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun
Mancha kalpa durubhyascha kripasindubha evacha patitanam pavanebho vaishnavibho namo namaha. Welcome back to our online Bhakti Shastri course. We're currently in Unit 1 in the study of Bhagavad Gita, chapters 1 to 6, translations and purports by ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Abhaycharan Arabina Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is lesson 11. We'll be concluding our study of the 6th chapter in this lesson. In lesson 10, we were analyzing the role of the mind in yoga practice and how Ashtanga Yoga sadhana practice essentially is to try to bring the mind under control. We were evaluating the impracticality of Ashtanga Yoga for the modern age, and how Arjuna 5,000 years ago, even though he was so qualified, he never attempted it. What to speak of us today? And how actually in the Keval Ananda Konda of Krishna consciousness, the easy path of Krishna consciousness, how these principles of Ashtanga Yoga can be followed in a very comfortable and convenient manner. And we were looking at some comments Srila Prabhupada was making in regard to the elevated position of the bhakta in comparison to the Paramatma realized Ashtanga yogi who had retired to the reclusion of his cave, and he was elevating himself to self-realization, compared to the elevated position of the bhakta who was trying to share Krishna consciousness with others, and in that way aligning himself more closely with the actual interest of the Lord. Let's take a look at an overview of the 6th chapter. In the first 9 verses, Yoga Rurukshu and Yoga Rurudha practice, verses 10 to 27, the stages of yoga practice, the different sadhana practices, and the ultimate attainment, or samadhi, realization of the supersoul. And Ashtanga Yoga is rejected by Arjuna, we'll be looking at today, and the destination of the unsuccessful yogi and the topmost yogi. So Arjuna asked this question in text number 37. Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? O mighty arm Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So in response to this very important question of Arjuna, Krishna explains in text number 44, Purvabhyasena tenaiva uriyatehi avasho pisaha jigyashu abhijogasha. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, the Purva Abhyas. Abhyas is a very interesting word. It means the habits one has, cultivated habits, abhyas, one's habitual behavior. Abhyas also means practice, your application and practice of a concept, that's abhyas. So in both meanings are very much relevant for the Krishna conscious devotee, that the Purva Abhyas, the practices that perhaps of sadhana that perhaps we have made in previous lives by Vaishnava Kripa, if that was the case, then those impressions which are formed as a result of regular sadhana practice, the shaping of the consciousness, that remains with one as one progresses to another body in order to carry on with the spiritual progress. Or regardless of our practice in previous lives, as a result of the habits that we are cultivating in this life, as a result of the standard behavior the habitual behavior that we perform. Like, for example, a devotee. A devotee will walk into even an apartment, and immediately he'll go and pay obeisances. He'll look for the temple and go and pay obeisances, without even thinking about that type of behavior. It's an automatic, habitual activity. When a devotee walks into the temple room, he doesn't make a decision, oh, there's the Murti of Srila Prabhupada, I bow down, I'm not to bow down here, yes, and say the prayers, and then the Murti of Krishna, I have to go and bow down. He's not thinking like that. He actually, generally devotees may be thinking of something completely out of irrelevant, and they're just mechanically going through these activities without even focusing on them. But it's showing that it doesn't require, a devotee has practiced these types of activities frequently enough so that it doesn't actually require the attention of the mind to effectuate them. Therefore, this has become habituated activity. One has developed. Now actually this is something is desirable, because one is actually reviving one's nature, one's original nature, and that becomes firmly revived. As Sutta Goswami explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nashta prayeshu vabhadreshu nitam bhagavat sevaya. By bhagavat sevaya, by regularly serving Krishna, and those habituated activities that we follow in the bhagavat sevaya, bowing down, putting on tilak. Devotees, we don't even think about putting on tilak. We were discussing recently with some congregational devotees about the benefits of living in the brahmachari ashram. Because in the brahmachari ashram, one can get indoctrination into Vaishnava values, culture, and lifestyle. And it becomes the longer one remains in brahmachari ashram, the more deeper these thought patterns and behavioral patterns become entrenched. And one automatically will take bath in the middle of the day and I put on tilak, because that's what it means to be trained in brahmachari life. And one automatically developed a habit, automatically will do that without having to make a decision to do it. And these are the advantages. This is why one should go through brahmachari training. So one develops these regulated habitual activities. They're called purva abhyas. Now Krishna is explaining here that even if you don't perfect your Krishna consciousness in this life, as a result of those habituated thought processes and perceptions and values that you've developed in Krishna consciousness and lived according to, they become permanent assets. We'll see later in 16th chapter of Gita, Krishna will describe these as the Daivi Sampat, the divine qualities of one's nature, humility and purity and honesty and simplicity and tolerance. These qualities that you have, that a Vaishnava develops as a result of, these will remain with you. These are divine qualities. How is it they remain with you? Because we discover there's no loss, no diminution. These things are actually reviving our eternal personality, spiritual personality. Gradually it's being, the illusory ego is being peeled off as a result. It's like, after millions of years of being encased on our subtle body, this identification is began eroding due to Krishna consciousness. Crashes down to the valley below. And the actual personality, the spiritual personality, which is full of ananda and full of the and devotional qualities of humility and appreciation and affection and intimacy, these qualities, they manifest in one's personality. And this will be, even if one doesn't perfect one's completely reawaken one's love of Krishna and establish a relationship completely, but partially, and one has to take another birth to complete the process. All of those qualities will remain. So therefore, we should try to develop these habits. Try to develop a sattvic lifestyle where we regularly are bathing, where we're always wearing tilak unless it's completely unavoidable. Work in such an environment where you can wear tilak. We were just discussing with Pramodji, our cameraman. He's an artist. And he was discussing here how he likes it. We're in Mayapur and he's wearing the devotional cloth. And I was asking how you find, Pramod, why don't you come and Come and show yourself here. Yeah, just come over. And I was saying, Pramod's wearing the nice devotional cloth. This is Pramod. He's our artistic director, designing everything on the videography. He's a photographer. The details of how to contact Pramod will appear at the end of the video. So Pramod is sharing how he feels very comfortable in the traditional devotional cloth. And I'm saying that you can wear your tilak, and you're an artist. You can do your work as a photographer and wear tilak. It'll be like an artistic statement. People won't. People won't. So as much as possible, be and work in such a way according to the Vaishnava culture. These are habits that we will carry with us into the subsequent life. Thank you, Pramod. Hare Krishna. So Krishna is explaining that as the result of the purva abhyas, of the previous practice, which has become our habit, and the cultivation that has been facilitated as a result of that habitual transcendental behavior, one develops attraction to Krishna, attraction to spiritual life, and then Prabhupada saying that attraction, jigyashu, that inquisitiveness about higher reality, about the eternal reality, that inquisitiveness will stay with you. And this is a symptom of any genuine seeker of spiritual knowledge, that he's inquisitive. Gayami, Shanatan Goswami Prabhupada, when he first was able to take instruction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the first question that Goswami inquired from Mahaprabhu, Sriman Mahaprabhu, Gayami, who am I? This inquisitive, I'm not this body, I'm not this product of this family lineage. What have I come here for? Who am I? So this question is jigyashu. This question will be there in the mind of a person who in the previous life has had some effort towards God realization, and as a result of that they've become inquisitive again very early in life. And devotees, we have this experience that we're not so, right from an early period of life, we're not enamored by the mundane lifestyle and what it has to offer, and we don't see any value in that, and we see it as very shallow and illusory. And that vision is a result of gyan, which had developed from previous life's cultivation of the path, spiritual life. Prabhupada mentions in different places how all of these different yoga practices will have benefits which will ultimately contribute to your coming to Krishna consciousness. And so that gyan will remain, may have developed that gyan as a result of some of these processes mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And so automatically, he avasho piyasha, automatically they've already passed so many obstacles that the materialists now are struggling with, obstacles in terms of enjoyment, in terms of control, in terms of other types of pleasure that the material energy provides, and being dependent upon these are challenges. So as a result of previous life's practice, many of these challenges already one has surpassed, and one doesn't have to go back and pass those. They're already placed at a higher level, closer to the highest achievement of full awakening of one's relationship with Krishna and enjoying spiritual rasa relationships and mellows eternally in his association. We're closer and closer to achieving that goal. Krishna is continuing that vinashashtasya vidyate nahi kalena krit kaschid, that a transcendentalist, that anyone engaged in auspicious activities, kalena krit, that there'll never be any inauspiciousness for them, no destruction. And then Prabhupada in his purport, he explains what is the auspicious, what is considered auspicious by Krishna in this case, and that is that inauspicious are those who are neglecting the shastric regulations and following in an irregular way, illicit sense enjoyment. Vikarmi is not inauspicious, and they'll be going in a degraded direction. Unless, of course, they're chanting Hare Krishna, then gradually they'll be delivered if they're chanting Hare Krishna, even though they may be at the level of the vikarma. If they're chanting Hare Krishna, then Dino Hino Jota Chilo. Dino Hino means the low and fallen. Dino Hino Jota Chilo, no matter how extensive. Hariname Udharilo, the holy name delivers them. So the vikarmi can become completely perfect just by chanting Hare Krishna. That's why Mahaprabhu is considered the Mahabharanaya avatar, Param Kuruna avatar, who's distributing the Keval Ananda Kanda. Because no qualification is required to begin. One can simply chant Hare Krishna. Grihe tako ba bone tako, hariname bole dako, shuke duke bule. Whether you're in happiness or distress, whether you live at home or in the forest, harinam bole dako. Now the karmakandis means those who are not sinning, they're following the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions in order to get prosperity and remuneration in this world and in the next world. It's called karmakanda. They're marginal. And the auspicious path begins at the level of the yogis, the karma yogis, jnana yogis, ashtanga yogis, bhakti yogis. So the progress made on those paths is always auspicious and will always be accredited to the practitioner. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the high planets. But still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not following the truly auspicious path. The only auspicious activities are those which lead to liberation. So this is not exactly relevant for a devotee. A devotee, this is a karmakandi who's actually trying to be religious for the specific. A karmakandi means the intention is enjoyment, and the process of achieving that enjoyment is by following the Vedic regulations. And that's a karmakandi. That's what's being described here. He may be elevated to the higher planets, but those results are exhausted. Kshanai punya, marcha lokam vishanti. And again, you're placed back in the same place. So it's actually not of any benefit, although it may appear that you're gradually making progress, going to the heavenly planets. But this is a Shangshar chakra. One is simply revolved. Brahmanda Brahmete. One is running upper planets, lower planets. So they are not free from material existence. They're not following the truly auspicious path, even though they are not sinning. That's karmakanda. But that doesn't so much relevant for a devotee, because a devotee is not after sense gratification. A devotee is understood that I'm Krishna's servant and is trying to fully dedicate his life to Krishna and fully revive his love of Krishna, and is practicing the procedures for doing that. There may still be residual material desires. That's called a sadhaka. Not completely. That's called at the level of the anatta nivriti, these removing of these material desires, anatta nivriti. And one will, even on that stage, one will gradually progress to nishta if he continues to chant Hare Krishna. Our yoga ladder. To conclude our discussion on the yoga ladder, we were discussing how from karma yoga, karma kanda, one's gradually elevated, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. Now, in the 6th chapter, Krishna describes how the dhyana yogi can elevate himself to a bhakti yogi. In text 31, sarvabhuta ashtito jomam bhajate ekhatam ashtito. Such a yogi engages in the worshipable service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one. Krishna is explaining that the Paramatma realized yogi, when he's singing the Paramatma in the heart and he's meditating on the form of the Paramatma, that is bhajati. That is bhajati ekatvam. This is the beginning of bhajati, of devotional service. This is described as shantaras. Shantaras, the yogi who's meditating on the form of the Supersoul, is shantaras, is beginning of that. Bhakti ras, beginning level, shantaras. And Prabhupada comments in the purport, such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. In fact, those verses are very sweet. Yomam pashati shavatra sharam chamai pashati. Those who see me everywhere and see everything in me. Tashaham na pranashami shachimena pranashati. I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. Sarva bhutashtam. Stara bhuta stitam yomam bhajate ekatvam ashtita. And in this way, seeing me everywhere, and seeing the Supersoul everywhere, is the beginning of devotional service. Sarva bhuta shtamatmanam sarva bhutani chatmani. A true yogi observes me in all beings, and also sees every being in me. Ikshate jugajugdatma savatra samadarshina. The self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord everywhere, samadarshi. And this is the beginning of devotional service, shantaras. And Prabhupada mentions that such a devotee can turn into a pure devotee. Such a Paramatma realized yogi can turn into a pure devotee. And there are examples of that. We have examples in the Bhagavatam of the four Kumaras. Tushara Vindanaya Shatkinjauka Mishra Tulasi Makaranda Vayur. And the fragrance of the tulasi leaves on the lotus feet of Lord Hari, who would come there to mediate between the four Kumaras and the giant Vijay, and there was a dispute. And the fragrance, Makaranda Vayur, from the lotus feet of the Lord, the tulasi leaves and the chandan, the fragrance enter. Anta Virenu Chakara Shankshobam Akshata Tashara Vindanayana Shapadara Vinda Kinjalka Mishra Tulasi Makaranda Vayur Antagata Swavivarena Chakarate Shankshobam Akshara Jusham Abichitta Tandvo. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulasi leaves from the toes of the lotus seat of the personality of Godhead entered into the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in the body and in the mind, even though they are attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. There's an example of how the Paramatma realized and the Brahman realized yogis can become attracted to the devotional service of the Lord. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preaching to Bhattacharya Sarvabhauma upon arriving in Jagannath Puri, similarly Mahaprabhu analyzing the Atmarama verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, when the sages at Naimisharanya were inquiring from Sutta Goswami, how is it that the Shukdev Goswami, who was already self-realized, how is it that he became interested to learn the Srimad Bhagavatam? And Sutta Goswami is answering, Atmaramash Chamunayo Nigranta Api Urukramei, that even the Atmaramas, those who are completely self-satisfied and don't require any type of enjoyment which is to be provided from the material energy, Atmarama Chamuna Nigranta Api Arukrame Kurvanti Ohoitikim Bhakti. They still have a desire, Kurvanti Ohoituki Bhakti. Even though they're not desiring anything in this world, they desire to Kurvanti Ohoituki Bhakti, to perform unmotivated devotional service, unalloyed, Ananda Bhakti, Ohoituki Bhakti. Itam Bhuta Gono Hari. In this way we can understand the greatness, Itam Bhuto, Guna, Hari, or the qualities of Lord Hari, that by logic we can understand if they attract the minds of those who are not attracted to anything in this material world, then the qualities of Sri Hari must be beyond this material world. And in that way, his divine transcendental qualities, they attract the liberated souls. So it would appear, if you analyze our yoga ladder that we have been discussing over the last few chapters of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as it is, that one has to go gradually, step by step, and perform karma yoga, and then lose interest in the activities and go to the forest and perform jnana yoga and meditation on the super soul, dhyana yoga, and then realize the super soul in the heart, and then that's the beginning of bhakti, and that's how you can begin bhakti yoga. So we should probably preach to the people that they should go through this yoga system, because then they'll be authorized according to the way Krishna recommends. Is that how we understand coming to Krishna consciousness? No. It seems that in Krishna consciousness we can just begin practicing Krishna consciousness without, as bhakti, we can begin at the top level, top rung. So one may become confused. How is that possible? How is that possible? Here Krishna is explaining step by step. And to get to the top step, just like in any university, you cannot just roll up. That's Australian vernacular language. You cannot just roll up, means arrive uninvited on the front door of the PhD doctorate college and say, okay, I want to start studying here. You have to go up gradually from the college, master's, degree, to PhD, etc. So how is it that we can just perform bhakti without having performed these other yoga systems? That can be done when we, as Prabhupada's explaining, that in order to understand bhakti completely, we need to analyze all of these yoga systems. Prabhupada was explaining that in order to understand the different components of bhakti, we need to take a deep analysis of different yoga systems, and then we can recognize how these all can be included automatically in the practice of bhakti. So in karma yoga, the purpose is is to learning detachment. Carries on with his activities, Yogastar, Kuru Karmani, you carry on with your prescribed duty, Sangam Tyaktva, but you abandon your attachment to enjoying the result of that activities. Sama Dukkha Sukham Dhirams. In this way, Samattam Yoga Uchate. This is called Samattva, become equipoised and become detached from the results and simply perform your prescribed duties in Varna, Ashram, Dharma out of duty. That's called Karma Yoga. Not so easy to do, and because first of all, who's performing the karma properly? Soyam tejas dhruti daksham jute chapi abalayanam. Show me the Kshatriya who's actually heroic, who leads the troops into battle. That's the concept of the Kshatriya in the Vedic times, that Duryodhana, Karna, Drona, and Bhishma, Arjuna, Yudhishthira, they are there on the battlefield leading the troops. This is a Kshatriya. It's not that the leaders of the country are miles away in a protected bunker and they're simply ordering the troops to do this and do that. This is not Kshatriya spirit. Kshatriya spirit is that the leader of the armed forces, the chief executive officer of the military, he is standing on the front of the battlefield. And sometimes just those two generals will come and they will throw their weapons and they will have hand-to-hand fight to death. And the winner takes both kingdoms. That is Kshatriya spirit. We fight, and the winner, he's a stronger king. And the soldiers, they happily join the other king. And this is the Kshatriya spirit. So even following the karma is very difficult in this age. We're all cowards. And the Brahmins are all working a job. So just to do karma, what to speak of karma yoga, do that, and then do it with detachment. Just do it because, hey, it's my duty, and I shouldn't enjoy it, and it's my duty to God. That's very difficult. In bhakti, that detachment from the result is very easily achieved, because Krishna is the enjoyer. Krishna is the enjoyer, and the devotee is not charging for the service. I want this, and that. No, he's serving Krishna to please Krishna. And he's relying on the reciprocation from Krishna to maintain himself. So he's detached. He's doing everything for Krishna. This is perfect detachment, and at the same time one can act and interact with the material energy in a very participatory manner, because one is not polluting his consciousness, seeing everything as being facility for serving Krishna. In that way, very easily in Bhakti Yoga, one attains the full achievement that is offered in the Karma Yoga practice. In Jnana Yoga, the essential component upon which one sustains his transcendence is his knowledge, jnana, being able to distinguish between things which are eternal and things which are temporary, and avoiding becoming dependent on those temporary things and cultivating a dependence and attachment to the eternal things, and living in that way, jnana yoga, jnana yogi. And that's based on knowledge, and as Prabhupada said, empiricism, and seeing everything as being illusory and not real, and never getting involved or entangled in the material energy, living alone in the forest, eating frugally, practicing tapasya, and just avoiding the material world, reclusive, renunciate, because understanding it's all illusory. There's knowledge, but that's very difficult to live. As I mentioned to you, I was in the yoga school, and there's supposed to be a jnani realized, and they said, well, if this is all illusion, then why are you here? Why are you taking all this trouble if it's all illusion? And the answer is, yeah, well, it's all illusion, but we don't really apply that in life. It's just a theory that's in the books. But practically speaking, we deal with it like it's real. So the Mayavadi philosophy, it's just theory. Practically, the whole philosophy, it immediately minimizes and removes the meaning of your existence, and then there's no point in existing. If your ego and your identity is illusory, then you just got to finish. And you can't do that, so you're just living a life of compromised awkwardness and dissatisfaction. Can't do it. You can't experience the full spirituality. There's a bit of meditation there. But in Krishna consciousness, the jnana is very easily cultivated. It comes automatically from practicing Krishna consciousness. in Bhakti Yoga, the Gyan comes very easily. In fact, it's a byproduct of the practice of Bhakti. One doesn't have to cultivate Gyan separately. As is explained by Sutta Goswami in first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yog Prayojita Janatyashu Bhairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hoitukum. That simply by Vasudeve Bhagavati, Bhakti Yog Prayojita, by applying and following the process of serving Vasudeva, Janatyashu Bhairagyam Gyanam, then very quickly, automatically comes detachment and Gyan, Bhairagyam Gyanam. Ahoitukum, even causelessly, or seeming without having to put any separate endeavor into that. And the knowledge that the bhakta receives is even deeper than the knowledge of the jnani. The jnani, he perceives the material energy as temporary and a source of suffering, and in that way he remains detached from the material energy. The devotee, he sees the material energy as temporary, but he sees it as Krishna's material energy. And in that way, he's able to interact with the material energy in a much more effective way, understanding what its utility is, not simply trying to avoid it, as the jnani does. So the knowledge of the bhakta is actually higher, because he knows the purpose of the material energy. And the knowledge that the jnani has of himself is that he's not the body and he's eternal, deathless. So a devotee, he knows that he's deathless, he's not the body, but in addition to that, the devotee knows that he's Krishna's servant and that his eternal occupation, shushukam kartam abhyayam, to eternally, joyfully serve Lord Hari with his transcendental senses. So the devotee, he knows he's not the body, but his knowledge is even deeper because he knows he's Nitya Krishna Das, Jivera Shrarup Hoy. So in that way, the knowledge of the bhakta is actually deeper in terms of the identity of the self, Atma Tattva. It's actually deeper in the devotional realization. And that knowledge comes very easily. The devotee doesn't have to deny himself so many things and avoid so many things. Just by chanting Hare Krishna, one automatically, Janatyashu Bhairagyam Jnanam Chayada Hoitukum, automatically, without any cause, causelessly, detachment and knowledge awaken and are produced and develop in the character of anyone who's practicing Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga. And the process of dhyana yoga, that's very easily achieved in Krishna consciousness, because the purpose of dhyana yoga is controlling the senses, controlling the mind, meditation. In Krishna consciousness, one uses the senses to serve Rishikesh, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. This is Bhakti Yoga. And the mind, Savai Mana Krishna Pada Ravindayo, Manmana, Maya Shaktamana, he thinks of Krishna with his mind, he absorbs his mind in thoughts in relation to Krishna and his name, and he hears, absorbs his mind in the sound of hearing Krishna's name, and in this way he remembers Krishna, in this way with the senses he serves Krishna. So it's very easy for the yogi, for the bhakti yogi to achieve everything that the jnana yogi attains. So in this way, Bhakti Yoga is a very complete process of yoga, and one can therefore, just by practicing Bhakti Yoga immediately, even without having practiced any other type of yoga system, one can begin the practice of Krishna consciousness and achieve all of the results of all the yoga systems simultaneously and very quickly. But in order to understand this, as Prabhupada's mentioning, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal, but to understand, analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. Therefore, logically and very confidently, the devotee can explain that Bhakti Yoga is the highest yoga system. Even the other yogas, chronologically, respectively, they don't include each of the preliminary systems. They're all separate. But in Bhakti Yoga, they're all included in one simple package, and it can be done in a very easy way. So this can be understood by analyzing the different yoga systems. If somebody says, why should I take advantage of the elevator? I should go step by step. He can go. But here's the chance. If you take the Bhakti Yoga, immediately you take help of the elevator. Within a second, you are 100th floor, the direct process. So Krishna, he's canvassing. You don't wait. You don't worry about trying to do these different yogic processes. You just immediately take the Bhakti Yoga. Why go through all the trouble? Why unnecessarily go through all the trouble of progressing one after another through the different yoga systems, when just by simply coming to Bhakti Yoga and practicing Bhakti Yoga, you can get all of the results of practice of the previous yoga systems automatically. Why would you no necessity, come to Bhakti Yoga. And Mahaprabhu is even making that more convenient with the Nam Sankirtan movement, Grihe ba bonete take. Grihe ba bonete take. You live at home with your family, bonete take, or you live in a temple, or you live with the Vaishnavas, or you live in the forest. Ha Gauranga bole dake. Just call out the name of Gauranga. Narottama mage tarashango. Narottam Thakur will want to live with you and remain with you because this is an exalted style of life. The Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making Bhakti Yoga so easy to perform. So in this way we can be enthused to preach Krishna consciousness and to attract all kinds of spiritual aspirants, to explain to them through education, through analysis, through logic, through argument, and through personal demonstration. We can induce them to understand the advantages of practicing Bhakti Yoga, and we can inspire them to begin Bhakti Yoga by chanting Hare Krishna. Therefore, Krishna explains at the end of the 6th chapter, Yoginima Bisharavesham, of all the different type of yogis, Madgatena Antar Atmana, the one who, Madgatena Anta Atmana, when it is hard, Antar Atmana, Madgatena decides to follow me, surrender to me, to come to me, Madgatena, follow my path, approach me, Madgatena Antar Atmana, deep within his heart, who cultivates that desire by practicing Sharavan Bhajate, Jomam, by faithful, regular Nam Bhajan, Same Jukta Uttam. Krishna is explaining. He's the most intimately united with me in yoga because of the love that we are sharing and the love that is further and further developing as a result of his Shraddhavan Bhajan, devotional practices with love and faith. And this can be, therefore we can confidently make the claim, we can proclaim that the Bhakti Yoga is the topmost yoga system because Krishna has explained here. So irrefutably how Bhakti is superior, containing all of the components of the preliminary yoga systems and simultaneously being much easier to practice than any of those separate yoga systems. So in this way we can preach the message of Bhagavad Gita to enlighten our fellow man and woman and do great service for humanity. Let's conclude the unit with this inspirational comment from Srila Prabhupada. Anyone who preaches the gospel of Bhagavad Gita to the people of the world, he is the most dear, the dearest person in the world to Krishna. So therefore our duty is to preach the principles of this Bhagavad Gita, to make people Krishna conscious. People are suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore each and every one of us should be engaged in the preaching work of Krishna consciousness for the benefit of the whole world. Srila Prabhupada ki